Welcome to my series of basketball videos where I'll be comparing various NBA greats against each other. I'm doing this because I find that a lot of the basketball videos comparing players on YouTube are too focused on the big names and sometimes compare players from different positions. Lots of people compare Jordan to LeBron and Kobe to Duncan, for example, due to their similar levels of achievements, but since those players play different positions and have different styles of play, it's not an interesting comparison. In this series, I want to do comparisons between not just more well-known players, but players from days past, in the 1960s, 1970s, 1980s, and the ABA as well, that most modern fans probably do not have too much knowledge about. Also, as much as possible, I want to compare players that play similar positions and/or similar playstyles. To me, that's a more interesting and fruitful comparison. I'll be using 8 different metrics to judge each player. Scoring. This category will be defined by each player's career points per game, peak points per game, both regular season and playoffs, and number of scoring titles. Rebounding. This category will be defined by each player's career rebounds per game, peak rebounds per game, both regular season and playoffs, and number of rebounding titles. Passing. This category will be defined by each player's career assists per game, peak assists per game, both in regular season and playoffs, and number of assist titles. Efficiency advanced metrics. This category will be defined by each player's career true shooting percentage, PER, and win shares per 48. Reason I use true shooting percentage is because it's more fair to guards. Defense. This category will be defined by each player's all defensive selections, defensive win shares, and defensive player of the year awards. The reason I'm not using blocks, steals, or defensive box plus minus is because I want to compare the achievements of older players that modern fans might not have too much knowledge about, and players in the 1960s and early 1970s do not have these stats tracked. Awards. This category will be defined by all-star appearances, all-NBA selections, MVPs, finals MVPs, and championships as a top 3 player. The reason I have to count championships as a top 3 player on the team is because otherwise you'll get into the situation where, for example, Robert Horry has 7 rings and Karl Malone has 0, and it's not representative of how much better a player is if you weren't a top 3 player on that team contributing to a championship. Also, I'll be including ABA stats and awards and using them equivalent to their respective NBA stats and awards. Also, no All-NBA third team selections are included because All-NBA third teams weren't added until the late 1980s, which is unfair to older players. Playoffs. This category will be defined by how many Eastern Conference Finals or Western Conference Finals and Finals a player has been to, and how many championships they won as a top 3 player on the team. Yes, this is supplementary to the awards category because it also rewards players for making it far in the playoffs, even if they don't necessarily win at all. Totals. This category will be defined by longevity, how many total points, rebounds, assists, and win shares a player has accumulated throughout their career, and rewards a player's durability. After all, a lot of people say the best ability is availability. And of course, this is only going to be my opinion from comparing the available metrics, since I've not watched most of these players live or even been born when some of these players have been playing. And to keep it fair, I'm judging them based on how they did in their own era. There's no comparing what this NBA player played in today's era or the 1960s, none of that. It'll be strictly based on their stats and accomplishments within their own era against that era's competition, which makes the most sense to me. So I hope you guys enjoy this comparison video and hopefully learn something new from it. The 29th episode in the series looks at 2 underappreciated point guards from different eras. Both won multiple championships as part of a dynasty, both won a Finals MVP, and both were valuable secondary stars for their team. Tony Parker was a slashing, driving point guard for the San Antonio Spurs dynasty, playing alongside his co-stars Tim Duncan and Manu Ginobili, helping them win 4 championships together. Dennis Johnson, on the other hand, was a key part of 2 key dynasties, the late 70s Supersonics, which won a championship, as well as the Larry Bird Celtics dynasty in the mid-80s. But who had the greater career? Let's find out. In the scoring category, it's an interesting comparison as DJ actually played part of his career as a shooting guard with the Seattle Supersonics, but despite that, never averaged over 20 points per game in any season. Parker averaged 15.5 points per game for his career, peaking at 22 points per game in 2009, and raising it to 17.9 points per game in the playoffs, peaking at an impressive 28.9 points per game in the 2009 playoffs. DJ averaged 14.1 points per game for his career, peaking at 19 points per game in 1980, and also raising it to 17.3 points per game in the playoffs, peaking at 22.3 per game in 1982. Despite DJ playing as a shooting guard on the Supersonics, it was actually his backcourt teammate Gus Williams often scoring more points on the team. And on the Celtics, he was not relied upon as the first or second scoring options, often being the third scoring option on the team after Bird and Kevin McHale. Parker, on the other hand, was not only relied upon as a secondary scoring option on the team after Tim Duncan, but sometimes even as the primary scoring option in some of those Spurs playoff runs. Parker was fast and hard to stop on the drive, much like a modern-day version of Tiny Archibald or Dave Bing, although scoring not quite as much in volume as those two. However, Parker set the blueprint for the modern-day scoring PG, which came to be the main style of point guard in the modern-day NBA, with guys like Steph Curry, Dame Lillard, Kyrie Irving, Russell Westbrook, and Derrick Rose. So because of his status as a prototypical scoring point guard, I'll have to give this one to Tony Parker. When it comes to rebounding, neither player was a stellar rebounder, but DJ definitely had a bit of an advantage. Parker averaged 2.7 rebounds per game, peaking at 3.7 per game in 2005, and 2.9 rebounds per game in the playoffs, peaking at 4.2 per game in 2009. DJ averaged 3.9 rebounds per game for his career, peaking at 5.1 per game in 1980, and 4.3 rebounds per game in the playoffs, peaking at a remarkable 7.7 rebounds per game in 1983. Although DJ wasn't very athletic, he could definitely get some rebounds if the moment called for it, and so this category will go to him. In the passing category, both players were solid passers, although Parker played primarily as a PG for his whole career, while DJ played more as a combo guard, sharing backcourt duties with Gus Williams earlier in his career, but switching to a point guard role with the Suns and Celtics later on. Parker averaged 5.6 assists per game, peaking at 7.6 assists per game in 2013, and 5.1 assists per game in the playoffs, peaking at 7 per game in 2013. DJ averaged 5 assists per game, peaking at 7.8 per game in 1988. And 5.6 assists per game in the playoffs, peaking at 8.9 per game in 1987. So although Parker has way more seasons averaging over 5 assists per game than DJ, the peak numbers tell us that DJ was actually just as good of a passer when he was a designated PG, especially in the playoffs. Overall, it's hard to say that one player was far superior than the other, so I'll have to say that this one is close enough to call a tie. In the efficiency and advanced metrics category, Parker was a much more efficient scorer as he rarely took any bad shots, and mostly focused on easy layups or open look jumpers, while DJ was known to be a very poor shooter, especially at his position. The advanced stats back this up, and so this category easily goes to Parker. In the defense category, Parker was a very solid defender, but DJ was known as one of the best defensive guards of his era, with 9 all-defensive selections. DJ often frustrated opponents with his off-ball defense, and although their defensive win shares look similar, Parker also played more games overall. Given DJ's reputation as a frustrating defensive presence, I'll have to give this one to him. In the awards category, both of these players have quite a stellar resume, with multiple All-Stars, All-NBAs, championships, and a Finals MVP each. Parker has 1 more All-Star, 1 more All-NBA, and 1 more championship. And it's important to note that both Parker and DJ were top 3 players on their team for all of their championships. They were a crucial part of all of those titles. This one is very tough, but I'll have to give Parker the edge here just for that 1 extra in all those categories. In the playoffs category, I think this one is too close to call, as both players have experienced tremendous playoff success. DJ went to 1 more finals, but Parker has 1 more championship, so I'll put this one as a tie. In the longevity and totals category, Parker played a bit longer than DJ did and has more totals in every category, so this one will easily go to him. So when all the categories are summed up, Parker takes the scoring, efficiency, awards, and totals categories, while DJ takes the rebounding and defense categories, with the rest being a tie, giving Tony Parker the win. I think both of these players were underappreciated and snubbed from the NBA Top 75 list. Tony Parker was a crucial part of that Spurs dynasty, winning 4 championships alongside Tim Duncan and Manu Ginobili as part of the Big Three, and often was the second best player on those teams. He was a prototypical scoring point guard that we now see all over the NBA. Dennis Johnson was a key part of those late 1970s Supersonics alongside Gus Williams and Jack Sigma, as well as the Big Three Celtics in the 80s alongside Larry Bird, Kevin McHale, and Robert Parrish. Although a poor shooter, he was crucial defensively and made several key clutch plays for them. In fact, Larry Bird has often said that Dennis Johnson was the best player he has ever played with. I hope you guys enjoyed this comparison. Thanks for watching. Be sure to like and subscribe, and stay tuned for the next comparison video.